Phoebe Goodell and her twin sister Mary were the daughters of the Reverend Jotham Weeks and Anna G. Batchelor Goodell. Reverend Goodell was the pastor who presided over dedication services of the First Church in Vermilion Village on December 20, 1843. In 1849, Phoebe and Holden Judson were united in marriage, in the Pulchritudinous Church beside the one-room school both had attended as youngsters. At the time, those were the only church and school in the village proper. Holden's family had been among the first to settle in the region. In July of 1809, Holden's grandfather, Rufus Judson, his family, and several other families had traversed a new road, Lake Road, which ran along the lake shore from Rocky River to Huron, to settle in a place called Jessup, now Florence Township. They were from Danbury, Connecticut. About 1811 or 1812, Rufus, who was a blacksmith/farmer, moved his family to Vermilion. Mrs. Judson would later lose her life on Lake Erie while returning from a trip to Buffalo. Holden was born in Vermilion in 1826. His father, Charles P. Judson, born in 1775, was Vermilion's first storekeeper. For a number of years he was also Vermilion's township clerk. Holden's only sister, Lucretia, also attended the little brick schoolhouse in the village square. She later graduated from Oberlin College. By the year 1850, the population center of the efflorescing nation had shifted from Baltimore, Maryland to Parkersburg on the Ohio River. In 1851, a gentleman by the name of Horace Greeley published a piece in the New York Tribune that advised, "Go west, young man. Go west." And at the beginning of the decade, roughly 44,000 people had followed Greeley's advice. Holden and Phoebe would also heed that counsel. In 1853, Holden, a pregnant 20-year-old Phoebe, and their 2-year-old daughter, Anna, embarked on an overland journey across the North American continent into the wilderness of the West. Their destination? The Puget Sound country of the Oregon Territory, where the government of the United States promised, to each head of family who settled there, a grant of land. The journey along the Oregon Trail in a covered wagon, often drawn by a team of oxen, was not easy for anyone. The main killers were disease, i.e., typhoid, smallpox, malaria, and, of course, accident. Of perhaps 10,000 deaths that occurred along the trail, only 4% were due to Indian raids. Phoebe's account of this journey, and ensuing years, as she and her family helped shape the state of Washington and build the town of Linden out of the wilderness, can be found in her book, A Pioneer's Search for an Ideal Home, published in 1925 when she was 94 years old. Remarkably, or perhaps not, Phoebe often recalled her life in Vermilion, Ohio, as she and Holden searched for their ideal home in the West.
One night in my dreams I was with a dear companion of my younger days. She wandered with me on Lake Erie's beach. A soft south wind was blowing. The little ripples came creeping over the shells and pebbles. My hungry heart was feeding on those joys of bygone days. A passion of love filled my being. Stooping, I extended my hands over the clear waters as though I would caress them, and exclaimed, "Beautiful, beautiful Lake Erie."
Today, history books refer to her as the mother of Linden, Washington. She gave name to the town in reference to the poem Hohenlinden by T. Campbell, choosing to spell it with a Y simply because it looked prettier. Today in Linden, folks fondly refer to her as Aunt Phoebe. But call her what you will, aunt, wife, mother, sister, daughter, abolitionist, suffragist, prohibitionist, transcendentalist. Phoebe Goodell Judson was a pioneer in the finest sense of the word. She was a pioneer whose roots, forged in a tiny hamlet in Ohio during the early 19th century, helped give both form and substance to a great nation.
Hey everybody, I want to use this because I'm using a different setup here. I'm using a camera on a tripod that I'm looking at you through right now. Hi. but I wanted to use the background as well. This is Lottie Goodell. Goodell. I don't know why that name trips me up all the time. It's Godell. Goodell. And this is Lottie. Her grandfather, Jotham, was the minister of the church when it was built behind where the museum is today, the old Congregational Church. He was the first minister of that church and gave the christening sermon for that church. Lottie was always active in the church. She was a missionary, but a missionary in the United States. She spent her time between Vermilion and Kentucky. She would take clothes down there and help people down in Kentucky, down in the hills. Things were different back then. This would have been, in the early decades of the 20th century. But she looks like a nice lady. I see she liked cats too. I was happy to get this photograph, and I have her diaries, or a diary that she did when she lived in Vermilion, when she was growing up here. She lived down in the old Pelton house that's down, it's called the Old Pelton Hotel down on Huron Street. But she seemed to be a very nice person. Nice picture. Hey everybody, I want to talk a little bit about this screen recording that I'm doing, or the recording of the screen, this photograph, and it is a photograph, but it's a really nice one. This photograph was taken, if you don't recognize it yet, this is Main Street Beach. I can't give you a year on it, but it's been a while, to say the least. But beautiful, beautiful photograph. It reminds me very much of prints that people used to do for calendars and stuff like that. They almost look made up, like an artist's rendition of a certain area or something like that. But this is not. This is actually a photograph. And it was probably hand tinted. Nice photograph. Main Street Beach, as I've already mentioned, and you probably could recognize the beach. Back here, this area is still in there. Ted Wakefield used to have a home back in there. They finally tore it down, and I think it's part of the Erie County Metro Parks today. They're redoing the piers, rebuilding them. After all this time, they probably really need it. And a lot of people are going out on those piers now. For years and years and years, they couldn't do it, but they are today, so it's becoming more popular. This is my favorite beach, and I haven't been there for a while, and I don't go there. I don't plan to go there either, because I'm so dismayed by all the improvements that they've made. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. I like the original unkempt beach, let me put it that way. There were less people around, and I think that's probably why I liked it so much. Well, getting back to this portrait here. This portrait is of the little girl. Her name is, today, is Mary Jane Lakaitis, but her name at this time was Mary Jane Fisher. Former Mayor Fred Fisher and his wife Hattie, this is one of their daughters. I think she's I don't know if she's the oldest or not. She may be the youngest daughter. I know she's in her 90s today. She had a nickname that stayed with her for years and years. It's Bitsy. So her nieces and nephews refer to her as Aunt Bitsy Fisher. And such a cute photograph this is. I really like it.
would go to church, come to church, but he never did. And one Sunday he said to them, I'm going to go to church with you tonight. And he came to church, and of course I preached because I was a pastor. And he came up to the altar and gave his heart to the Lord. And he was way over 80 years old. And it wasn't too long after that he died. But you know, if anything at all happened in my ministry, that was probably the highlight of it, to see your own father give his heart to the Lord. And at over 80. A man in McDonald's this morning, I'm going to tell you something. He must have been over 7 foot tall. I said to him, I went over by him and I said, I guess the Lord must have a good sense of humor. Here I am, this little tiny person. He's way up.
Could it have been the pastor of our church, United Church of Christ? Because we have Bob Richardson. He's 7 foot. Have you ever met him?
No.
Yes.
7 foot?
Yes.
I don't know because I have shrunk because I was only 4'10" to begin with. I never was very big. But there's girls in the church that are young and they're only as tall as I am now. Where are they going to go?
Yeah, when they get taller. They say people are bigger now. Probably all the additives in the food and stuff.
I don't know. They're bigger this way.
For sure.
When Tom and I went, I can't remember what year it was, but you know the meals were only like $1 or something. You go to the restaurant, but as kids, we didn't know what a restaurant was. Never. My mother was always home. She cooked, and you know, she never. In those days, they never worked out. And we had Edith Graham. Did you know Edith Graham?
Yeah.
She was the manager of Kroger's. The Kroger store was downtown near Okagi's
It was right.
by Lighthizer.
Yep.
And she would have, I remember it was during the war, and she kept things under the counter. And when her regular customers come in, she'd have sugar and things that were rationed. And she wouldn't give them the summer people that came to town for summer, you know. She would keep things back and keep it for her regular customers. And I was thinking about Nagley, George Nagley and, who was it? Nagley and somebody that had a meat market. Stargardner, yeah. Yeah, we used to go there. My father, we couldn't afford butter, so we'd ask for oleo. And he sent us kids to town to the meat market, and we wanted oleo. They used to have, it was white like lard, and then you have a little capsule that you'd squeeze and you could color it.
I've heard of it.
We got home and we had butter. And my father was an honest man. He said, you kids take that butter back and tell Mr. Gardner he made a mistake. And we went back and he said, I didn't make a mistake, I gave you that. He wanted us to have the butter instead of the oleo. And my father made us take it back because he thought he was getting something that didn't belong to him. My father walked to town every morning. He was a blacksmith. he and my grandfather, and they had a blacksmith shop right down from Hart's drugstore where Lighthizer, I forget, Lighthizer.
Billy's Lighthizer has that house back.
Yeah, and their blacksmith shop was there. And then later, I think he moved up to town, more up in town after, later, I think. My husband worked for Nickel Plate under Pete Viola. Well, we got married in '34. The recession, there was really it was worse than a recession. What do they call it?
Depression.
Yeah. But he always had something to do. But my father I know he had me. I don't know who else. And we walked from west of town to Crystal Beach. And they would have a park plan, or they would have something else. If you paid at the gate, you could ride all you wanted to. Or if you didn't pay at the gate, you'd pay for each individual ride. So my father said, "This is the park plan, we'll go." And we walked all the way to Crystal Beach, and when we got there, it was the wrong plan, and he didn't have the money to get us in. And we had to go back home.
Oh.
That's not a very good memory.
No.
And Thelma Blanchett was my teacher. She taught shorthand and typing and bookkeeping. There was a boy that, I don't want to give his name, but he was the worst student in the class. And he, while she was grading our papers, he took his paper and he stuck it up on the blackboard, and he copied his answers off from one of the papers. And she wasn't paying any attention. It turned out he copied it off the next dumbest person in the class. So he flunked. You'd probably know him if I told you what his name was, but I'm not going to tell. I just want to say that I love this. I love this town, and I'm thankful for the Lord, what He has done. I only had one grandfather. Today, when people have grandparents, I hope and trust that you will honor your grandparents, because it's such a privilege to have them. And you'll never have anybody as beautiful as a grandmother or a grandfather as you're growing up. Yes. And every time anybody asks me who I am, I'll say, "Do you know Larry Howell?" And my son says, "Everybody knows Larry." So I'll say, "I'm Larry Howell's aunt." And this is my claim to fame, because I'm his aunt. Well, I'm thankful for the chance to say that my life was turned around when I met the Lord. And I had a greater sense of worth than I ever had in my life. And the people that are Christian people have been so precious to me, taking care of me, and seeing that I get to church. Because being as old as I am, if it's snowing or if it's bad weather, somebody will call me up and say, "We're coming to get you," and somebody always takes me. So they're taking care of me. And I'm the great-grandmother, I guess, of the church, the oldest one of the church. But I have precious pastors, and I have precious people. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the one that the Lord has put in my life.
father from Norwalk and had 4 children. That marriage was for love, and as she put it, the neighbors got the love and all she got was a bunch of kids. She always told young girls to find the richest man you can find, and when the love flies out the window, you still have the money. She married Conrad Noon, who was 20 years older, because she had 4 kids and he had 4 members. He was a wonderful man, soft-spoken and kind. They were married for 19 years. When he died, she married Arthur Giddings, also 20 years older. Also a very nice man. He had 3 houses and no kids to inherit them. See, she planned these things out. They loved her very much, and she made them happy, as she loved to have people to dinner and laugh a lot and entertain. She made them go on nice trips out west, and they'd never done that before and enjoyed it. Art Giddings was probably, 76 or something, and they went to drove. And she didn't know how to drive, and they drove to California and Florida one winter, and she wasn't a bit afraid to go with them, but they did well, and they had a good time. She was very good friends with Ruth and Elmer Trinner up at Axtell. When Ruth had died, I said, "Mom, why don't you go after Elmer Trinner?" Her reply was, "My God, I got you 3 houses and now you want a farm." She played for the singing at the Rotary Club for 15 years for 75 cents a week in the 1940s. My dad never knew about it. Naturally, he was jealous because he was a lot older, but he was a sweetheart. She took the bus to Cleveland very often where, quote, people talked about something besides what they had for supper and how they cooked it. I wanted to tell you about my kids loving her so much. They loved to stay overnight. When she asked what they wanted for breakfast, they'd say ice cream and chocolate sauce and nuts. So she'd give them money to go to Hart's and buy ice cream, chocolate sauce, and nuts. No wonder they liked it there. She took my 3 girls into Cleveland to stay at the Statler Hotel overnight because she always wanted all of us to see the city. She loved Vermilion, but she loved the city.
Dorothy Weber Littman. I had been meaning to do something like this for some time now. But being the crackerjack procrastinator that I am, I temporarily set it aside and promptly forgot about it. And then, out of the blue, I received a telephone call that put me back on course. The call was from the now late Marie Tansey, who then lived in Huron. Like many folks who've lived here and for whatever reason, have moved away, her heart was always in Vermilion. Marie called to tell me that one of her sons had given her a subscription to the Vermilion Photojournal, and she was pleased to see and read, among other things, my Yesteryear column. Now, I certainly appreciated the call, because I have always had a great deal of admiration and respect for Marie, as well as her late husband Chuck. Marie served in the Ohio House of Representatives for our district, the 72nd, from 1977 to 1988. And her husband, Charles, served as a Vermilion postal worker and then postmaster. But all of that is another story for another time. What Marie reminded me of was my intention to put together a series of articles about memorable women of Vermilion, Ohio. Marie would someday, of course, be one of them. But through the years, there have been many. One woman that immediately popped to the forefront of my thoughts was Dorothy Littman. Dorothy was a person that if you knew her, you would never forget. My very first memories of Mrs. Littman comprised the years when she and her husband Bill owned and operated Vermilion's newsstand. It was located in the building currently occupied by the Olive Scene store on Liberty Avenue. My sister, Ginny Wilkes, worked for them selling newspapers, magazines, tobacco, as well as bus tickets. And I delivered papers, the Cleveland News and Press, from the place. My earliest impressions of Mrs. Littman are of an extremely ambitious and outspoken woman who chain-smoked long filter cigarettes and spoke in a voice that, believe it or not, I am still able to recall. Her husband Bill was almost the direct opposite. He was very easygoing and rather soft-spoken. Both were hard-working individuals. Dorothy had been born Dorothy Weber in Ashland, Ohio in 1916, the daughter of Fern Bay, mayor of that place. She married her husband, Maurice, a.k.a. Bill, a West Virginia native, in 1941. The following year the newlywed couple came to town with a dump truck and secured a contract with the village for the collection of rubbish. It is important to note that both Dorothy and Bill worked very hard to fulfill this contract. I say this because it serves to emphasize the fact, not just my subjective opinion, that Dorothy was extremely ambitious. She was always ready, willing and able to do whatever was required to succeed in life. In time, the rubbish business afforded them the ability to purchase the newsstand. It should be noted that the newsstand business was a veritable hub of activity throughout all of the 1950s, on into the 1960s and beyond. It certainly seemed to help Dorothy develop her voice, at least when it came to community affairs. She was a charter member of the Business and Professional Women of Vermilion, a charter member of the Vermilion Women's League, chairman of Vermilion Charter Days, and was the co-founder of the new Teacher Orientation Day for the Vermilion school system. She was also an active member of the United Church of Christ Congregational, the Madeline Chapter 204 Order of Eastern Star, the Vermilion Chamber of Commerce, a board member of the American Red Cross Erie County Chapter, the board of directors of the Firelands campus of Bowling Green State University, and the Lorain County United Way, among other things. Thus, it should come as no big surprise that in time Dorothy, the quintessential businesswoman, became involved in politics. Eventually she took a position as district assistant to U.S. Congressman Charles Mosher and, later, Donald J. Pease. It was an environment in which she thrived. In a 1960 interview with reporter Leslie Lapides from Illyria's Chronicle-Telegram she joked, "It's not an easy job, but no one's forcing me to keep it. It's exactly what I wanted all my life. I'm getting paid for doing what I do anyway, messing in people's lives." And she was good at it. Well, Dorothy kept on messing in people's lives from 1964 until July 18, 1981. She died on the 17th day of January in 1982 after losing a 6-year struggle with leukemia. Her husband Bill followed in 1983. And her mother took the same journey in 1985. Dorothy Littman is undoubtedly one of those great American success stories. If anyone ever understood the everyday struggles of her contemporaries, and ours, it was Dorothy Littman, one of Vermilion's most memorable women.
My brother Ross was a big guy, and so big that one time when he jumped off the fish tug onto the boat, the dock downtown, he went through it. So there my brother was with his elbows up there where we were all standing. We got a blow out of that, but Ed was a good guy. He was just an old salt and a little on the, I guess, in the homely side, but he was a great person, and I loved him. I thought he was a nice guy. He was always very nice to all of us. We loved Ed. Ed finally ended up over toward east there with his son John, but it wasn't too long before he passed, so we had good relationship and good memories with that. My biggest memories for me are right down there, standing in front of the insurance store downtown there. When you go out to the town, you go to over the bridge, but don't go over the bridge. Stand there at the board, at the insurance thing, and there was the gas station that years ago was a Sunoco station at one time, and ended up as Ohio station with my brother Harry. So that was good, a place for all of us to hang out. But I really hung out at the boathouse. That was my dear thing. I have a picture of it that my nephew, when he was here, took it back to Florida with him, and he made a copy of it that's very up that big by making the grill marks all over. That's my dearest picture. So there's the old boathouse.
So you felt more at home down there
Yes.
than anywhere else.
Never forgot it. Felt bad because I didn't get to her funeral. I wasn't driving. So there were feelings there, I guess, and I thought of all times, but well, that just happened, that's all. My heart was there, though. And I went there afterwards when she was still alive, and she had a few things for me she wanted me to have. Actually, that was the last time I saw Mom. I guess that's why I always call her Mom. Mom and Dad. Because I was young when and they meant a lot to me because I could enjoy and do whatever I wanted to entertain myself. So it was fun.
Parents at the gas station.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty busy.
Well, I learned there to put air in tires and to gas them up, some oil. Had to put oil in there a few times too, helping my dad.
Wash windows?
Pardon?
Did you wash windows too?
Oh, not there, no. Well, sure I did. All the windshields, yes. And the back one. The back one had to get to so they could see everything. So it kept us busy, kept me out of trouble. And I could even wander over on the bridge and look down at Helfrich's and later McGarvey's. And now, what is it, Tube Lube and something like that. That was always things going on. People that had too much to drink stagger up the stairs.
A Vermilion friend. I received this photograph of Elizabeth Bessie Roscoe from my only cousin David Lindsay some time ago. Bessie was our maternal grandmother, the wife of Vermilion News publisher Pearl Roscoe. She was born in Hennepin County near Minneapolis, Minnesota on February 8, 1877. She was the eldest daughter and oldest child in a family of 4. She had a younger sister and 2 younger brothers, Lee, Tom, and Ethel. Her father, Ernest T. Bottomley, and mother Clara brought the family to Vermilion, Ohio in the latter years of the 19th century, where he co-owned and operated a grocery business with his brother George on Vermilion Square. While I've no idea as to how she received her formal schooling, she took an examination and received a teacher's certificate in Wright County, Minnesota, when she was just 15 years old. The county superintendent noted on the back of her certificate, "Considering your age, your examination is highly creditable to you. But before I give you the certificate, you must get the request of all members of the school board where you wish to teach. I wish to file that in my office. You are very young to commence teaching, but should you undertake it, you have my best wishes for your success. Yours truly, F. W. Lindsley, County Superintendent." In January of 1896, she received a certificate to teach school in Erie County, Ohio, and taught for several years for the Vermilion schools. in a one-room schoolhouse before her marriage to Pearl Roscoe in 1901. Pearl, a native of Milan, was working as a printing foreman for the old Lorraine Times-Herald when they were married. That same year, they purchased a newspaper and print shop in Vermilion, Ohio called the Vermilion News from a fellow named George Whitmore. During the first few months of their marriage, editor Roscoe and wife Bessie, his associate editor, commuted between Lorraine and Vermilion on bicycles. In 1904, Pearl's father Castleton, a carpenter and millwright, built the couple a new place at 513 Grand Street where they located their business. It was a neat two-story structure. The bottom floor contained the print shop, and the upper floor served as living quarters. On May 24, 1906, the Roscoes welcomed a daughter they named Ella into their family. 6 years later, they welcomed another little one to their fold they named Alice, and life moved along. Eventually, Bessie opened a small gift store on Liberty Avenue, in a building next to the Liberty Theater that was shared by Western Union. The newspaper, printing business, and the little gift shop did well over the years that followed. Bessie was active in numerous civic, social, and religious affairs of the community and served the Vermilion Library as a trustee for 25 years. In the latter months of 1945, Bessie began to feel ill. She died at St. Joseph's Hospital in Lorraine, Ohio, on the 7th day of January in 1946, a victim of cancer. Public funeral services for her were held at the Congregational Church on Thursday, January 10th at 2 p.m. She was laid to rest at Maple Grove Cemetery that afternoon. The town had lost another friend.